Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to all our respected panelists and all attendees from across the globe. I welcome you all to the Secutech webinar series 2020 curated by Secutech and Mitkat. Secutech, being India's largest networking platform of the country, is honored to bring together the expert industry leaders through our webinar series Secutech Webinar 2020. It is a platform which has seen thought evoking from the top leaders in security division, and this has been the very core at Secutech since its inception. I am glad to have all of you all here today to be as a panelist and to contribute to the Secutech platform. I will now hand over the mic to Ritika to introduce all our panelists for today, post which our moderator, Mr. Sushil Pradhan, will be taking over the panel. Yeah, Ritika.
Thank you, Mohit. Good evening and a warm welcome to the respected panel and viewers who have joined us today. I take this opportunity to thank each of the respected panel members for giving us the honor. I'm sure the expert leaders on the panel today need no introduction, but I would like to take this opportunity and briefly introduce each leader. Sushil Pradhan, COO Mitkat Advisory Services. Sushil Pradhan is COO of Mitkat Advisory Services. He has led several risk management assignments in Myanmar, Iraq, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and difficult geographies of India. He has 22 years of military services, from counter-terrorist operations to high-altitude warfare to deserts. He was part of the UN peacekeeping mission in Sierra Leone and has been a UN trainer for international peacekeepers in Germany. Sushil is a frequent speaker in several influential ACSG, OSAC, and ACES forums at Dubai, Mumbai, at International Conference at London, New York, and Singapore, and at various other professional forums in Singapore, Colombo, Dhaka, and Beijing. Going to Mr. Surendra Bhardwaj. Mr. Surendra Bhardwaj, Vice President and Regional Security Manager, APAC, Northern Global Physical Security Services, Northern Trust. He has the experience of 28 years in global physical security services since 2010, with an experience of 28 years in the field of safety and security. Previously, he worked as a regional manager, NetApp, data storage company headquarters at Sunnyvale. He was instrumental in planning and installation, project management, and building of the safety and security system and technology. Major Surendra has served in the Indian Army 1984 to 94. He has been awarded Chief of Army Staff Commendation Card Gallantry Award in 1993. Welcome, Mr. Surendra Bhardwaj. Next, we go to Mr. Gurucharan Virdi. Mr. Gurucharan Virdi, Security Operation and Analysis Command Center at Bank of America since 2012. The center acts as a 24/7 hub for reporting, responding to security and safety incidents, alarm monitoring, card credentials programming, and managing a 24/7 employee helpline across India. He specializes in counter-insurgents operations, training and development, administration, financial planning, strategic IT management, virtual reality, geography information systems, etc. Having served with the Indian Army, he has had the opportunity to head the Center of Army Lessons Learned for the entire Indian Army at the Army Training Command, Shimla. Welcome, Mr. Virdi, on board. Next, we have Mandeep Singh Maan, Sena Medal Regional Head of Barclays Security at Pune, an ex-Special Forces officer who communed 21 Para Special Forces. Under his command, the unit was awarded Best Unit citation for its stellar operational performance. After premature retirement, has held multiple opportunities ranging from physical security, resilience, intelligence, risk management, fraud investment, and vigilance. He is a keen marathon runner, did 250 kilometers ultra marathon in 2018 and planning to do Ironman. Welcome, Mr. Man, on board. Mr. SANJEEV SABHRAWAL, Director and Head South Asia Global Security Services and Crisis Management, Credit Suisse. He is an ex-military. In his early years, he served with country's elite national security guard counter-terrorism unit, leading a team of special action group. Later, he headed Indian Army Psychological Operation and Media Division in South Kashmir. He also served as a director in Indian Army, top financial organization dealing with financial due diligence related to institutional loans. Currently, he is director with Credit Suisse, serving and head of South Asia Global Security Services Group. He is a former vice chairman of Hinjwadi Industry Association. He is a noted speaker in many industry forums. Welcome, Mr. Sabhrawal, on board. Mr. OMPRAKASH, CPP Director, Global Security and Investigations, Fidelity Business Services, India Private Limited. With over 22 years of progressive professional experience in corporate security and risk management in India, has extensive knowledge and experience in asset protection, security, and crisis management. Presently works as Director, Global Security and Innovation at Fidelity Business Services India Private Limited. During this sizable tenure, he had an investment MNC company, ITES, telecommunication, petrochemical, health and care, FMGC, aviation, and execute protection. Om Prakash is a graduate and holds a Bachelor of Science degree, lead auditor of ISO 27001 Information Security, earned gold-rated ACES Board CPP certification. Currently, he holds leadership position in ACES International. He makes significant contribution to the security industry through voluntary leadership and mentoring the next generation of security professionals. I welcome Mr. Shingare on board.
Thank you.
Next we have is Mr. Raghavendra KP, CSMP, CCSMS, CCPC, CCPS, CATS, Senior Manager, Business Resilience and Physical Security, APJ including India, VMware. A corporate security and business continuity professional with over 25 years of experience in varied fields of public and private sector, currently heading the physical security and enterprise security functions for APJ region for VMware. Has extensive experience in leading teams across geographies and implementing out-of-the-box solutions for key projects and operations. I welcome you, Mr. Raghavendra, on board. So now, without further delay, I would like to hand over the mic to Mr. Sushil Pradhan to begin with the panel discussion. Sir, the mic is all yours, and all the best to everyone for the webinar.
Thank you, Ritika, and thank you, Mohit, for the introductions, and welcome everyone to this amazing panel where you have such experienced professionals in the field of physical security and a huge amount of experience and expertise that goes into it, especially those who are coming from the banking and financial services sector. So, today, of course, the top of the mind topic with everyone is what's happening in the pandemic, or why are we, conducting this webinar in a virtual manner, whereas usually it would have been on a live platform where people would have been able to come and shake hands with the panelists and interact with them. So obviously the burning topic, and that's why we have today's discussion, which is scheduled on how has corporate security enabled the banking and financial sector to successfully work through the pandemic. I'm not going to talk about it much because that's what the panelists are here for. But essentially, what I'm intend doing is quickly we shall address a few questions to some of the panelists, especially in their field of expertise, and then we shall have some open-ended contributions coming in from them towards the second half of the discussion, and then towards the end we shall open the house to some Q&A. So please reserve your questions till the end. I have also put in a message that all those of you who have questions should type them into the chat box, so that towards the end I'll be able to take them on and address them to the correct panelists. So, this pandemic has created havoc and disrupted not just the health of the nation, but also the economy of the nation. Nevertheless, the banking and financial sector has proved to be fairly resilient and has worked through the pandemic so far. And an essential component of the country's economy, they have been going ahead with limited operations and have been contributing to their parent organizations, most of which are abroad. So there are some very unique aspects of working through the pandemics and the lockdowns, which have been proving as challenges, and especially for day-to-day operations. And not very surprisingly, I would say, but very, very, with a feeling of pride, I would say that the corporate security function was one which came through with flying colors, and was really one of those who contributed to working through the pandemic. And the various aspects of this, I'll just quickly ask one by one some of the panelists to address. And starting first with the concept of resilience and continuity, because that is really very important in offshore banking operations and financial operations. So I would like SANJEEV SABHRAWAL from Credit Suisse to give us his perspective on how resilience and continuity was achieved through various efforts, especially that by the security function. Over to you, sir.
Thanks, Sushil. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So I'm going to talk in the next 4 to 5 minutes about resiliency and continuity and the role played by the corporate security in this very vital aspect of any organizational functioning. To begin with, I don't look after resiliency in my department, but I work very closely with the resiliency department, and we work hand in gloves. And this narration is actually the story of have and have-nots, where I all of a sudden found myself completely out of job, and how I created avenues for myself and my peers as well, how they created avenues for themselves to stay relevant to the current crisis. Though I'm a crisis manager, but this crisis actually didn't involve me at all. And that's the story that I'm going to narrate. And I'll go a little bit in a background to start with my narration and talk about the early days of February and January, and then rolling on to March, where we saw the pandemic, we saw it coming, but we never thought that it's going to lead to closure of offices. We thought that it's a pandemic, we will work through it, like most of the countries were working. We never heard the word lockdown. We had our pandemic SOPs, we looked at our pandemic SOPs, and we were very satisfied with that, because we never realized that this is going to lead to the closure of offices. We thought that we were going to maintain social distance protocol. We also came up with strategies in a very incremental way of, okay, we will reduce the number of people coming at home, and let's say 40%, 50% people are going to work from home, and we'll pass through the pandemic and get the rest of the people back into the offices. And at that point in time, people were thinking about how to make those 40, 50% people working at home. And until then, security had no role to play in that. It was the divisions, the business verticals who were looking at the issues involved with making people work from home. And then, like I always believe that anything good that happens, it happens after a surgical strike. And you can get the reference. We did a surgical strike somewhere, and many good things came out of it. And surgical strike did happen to almost all the corporates across the globe. That is, we were hit with a lockdown. We were told overnight that you cannot come to office. And that's when the paralysis hit to most of the leaders. And I'm not talking about myself as a leader, I'm talking about the business leaders, the people who are responsible for P&L. They were completely hit with a humongous paralysis of how to make people work, because nobody thought that 100% of their workforce is going to stay at home and work. They never thought about that. So 2 eventualities come out of such surgical strikes. First is collapse. People just collapse. Mental paralysis leads to collapse, and you just get a blank out. And the second is solutioning. Well, everybody, if you have to stay in business, you have to stay relevant, you have to come out with solutioning ideas, and people started coming out with solutioning ideas. And you started sitting out and realizing, and here is where physical security came in. And even the resiliency department, they started, what do? They only work on two premises: loss of premises and loss of assets or loss of staff. Staff were intact, premises were intact. They were both there. However, there was a little collaboration. The staff couldn't come to the premises couldn't go to staff. So where do you find your revenue out? Well, came in to analyze that what do you need to have people work from home? And here I'm going to bring in the corporate security and its relevance in all this. So you started listing down the stuff that you need to work from home. You need IT assets primarily, which should be matching, if not more than the assets that you have in the office. You need a great Wi-Fi, you need power, you need continuous power supply, you need to have compliance approvals. You need to be compliant with working on your solutions, which you work in the office within the barriers of your biometrics and access control and CCTVs. Same stuff working without any boundaries, permeable to anybody to come and have a look at what you're doing on your screen in your home. So you have to have that. And finally, the ergonomics. You need to have a space, you need to have a home, you need to have a chair, you need to have a table, you need to be able to sit, stand without actually breaking down. And in all this, where does physical security come in? Nowhere. So, like I mentioned, that me and many of my kin actually found themselves completely out of job. And that's when you started realizing that you need to create avenues for yourself and come up with something which is where you can add value. IT equipment had to be transported. Nobody knew how to transport it. Your ergonomics, your chairs, your tables had to put it, know how to transport it. Your essentials had to be provided to the people. People also need to take care of health, life. They need to know which hospitals and all. And that's where we started realizing, the corporate security professionals, that we have an area, we have a massive gap of knowledge, of awareness, and also of travel commute, where people have to, break fix has to happen. How do people come to the office? Certain very essential people have to be brought to office. How do they come to office under a lockdown? And that's where, and if that doesn't happen, nothing happens. If people don't get their IT equipment, how do they work? If breakfast people did not come to office to get their laptop prepared, how do they come? Essential people cannot come to the office, that 5%, 2% which have to come to office. How do you do it? There'll be complete lockdown. So that's where people like us actually jettisons ourselves and sort of jumped into the fray and said, okay, we put our hands up and we're going to give you the solution for this. We interacted with the whole sort of to and fro with the local police, with the business leaders, with the civil administration, with the transporters, and managed a solution to, and provide a solution to move goods from place A to place B, people from place A to place B. Second and most important aspect, all of a sudden there was an information blackout. There were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of orders, guidelines pouring in, and one couldn't relate one from the other. State level orders, central level orders, municipal level orders, one related to the other, but one municipality not in sync with the other municipality. Two districts not in sync with each other. How do people move across one district to the other? How do you, and this information void was again leading to a business paralysis. And that's where people who had analytical capability, having control rooms with them, having reporting lines with them, they came in and they pitched in and started creating a kind of a architecture around which this immense information, which sort of pouring in all over, could be given a structure, could be given a regulated format, and then presented to the business that, hey, you need to do this is what you can do, this is what you can't do, and what you can do, we will facilitate you to do that. And across, I can talk about my peers, I can talk about everybody, and since we're so beautifully syndicated, facilitated this. We facilitated the flow of information. We facilitated the flow of right information, what to do and what not to do. We facilitated travel between various places, A to B, from office to home, home to office. We also facilitated healthcare. For all of a sudden, people had complete information. So technically, it's an HR job. Benefits is under the HR. However, in crisis, everybody disappears. No disrespect to HR, but in most of the organization, it's security professionals like Mansar and Verdi who actually jumped in and said, okay, we will have tie-ups with some hospitals. We will tell you which hospital is available, where is it not available, and we will facilitate that. So there was a lot of what corporate security saw with making themselves sort of slip between these cracks, a lot of reliability which came in. Not only projection happened, but a lot of reliability. People started giving us a lot of importance and putting us on a very high table where I can tell you from my organization that I was never invited into top management discussions, but ever since this happened and I created this avenue, me and my peers were being invited for all senior top management discussions, part of all management committees, part of all risk committees, and that's what had happened. So in nutshell,
so that's great. And
that's
actually, yeah, what you concluded on is actually the note that we are going to tackle in the second half of the organization in a little more detail. But taking off from where you said, about providing IT equipment, about equipping your workplaces for work with technology and security equipment, is that something which you can share with us, Raghavendra, how you managed it, because you've been managing these offices across the entire globe for your company and not just within India or within the APAC region.
So you're on mute, Raghavendra.
Sorry, thanks Sushil. So I'm going to touch upon first the communications, then the security equipment, and then technology. I think in a crisis, like what SANJEEV was referring to, the communication is the biggest gap, and I think there are different sources of information available, but unless somebody puts them into an understandable format and then presents it in a way that it is easily consumed, it becomes a big challenge. So during this entire crisis, I would say I would divide the communications into two pieces. One is the communication with the staff, and another is the communication with the crisis management team, which was trying to deal with the crisis, and the other people who are actually at the receiving end of the crisis, which is the staff. So when it comes to staff communication, so we ensured that we partnered with the regional leaderships, local leadership, and part of all the employee engagement sessions to ensure that every employee is kept up to date of all the relevant information that is required, and the employee morale is held high, and that the workforce is an engaged workforce. And also, some of the things which were very common during the normal office working hours is that which is people, especially in technology companies, tailgating is a major issue where people just tend to think they're being courteous when they're trying to allow somebody inside while while allowing somebody inside, or probably they're used to having a very elaborate emergency response teams which are well trained to deal with these situations. And also a lot of travel which was happening suddenly at different stages of the pandemic, and it got cut down, and at some point in time to the different regulations of the SANJEEV was referring to, like at municipal level, state level, and the country level, and also global level. So these are all were changing, and there was a big need for all of these communication to be readily available and not people going to multiple different places to reach out. So I think security in my organization, at least, we were able to play a pretty lead role, and also like we had a lot of experience from what was happening in the other regions, especially in the APJ where it started in China, the Wuhan, with the experience. So we were able to kind of put in a lot of communication vehicles in place, like a FAQ available on the source page or the intranet, company intranet, where people had every information which is available to them. And then also we had some critical staff, even in spite of all the lockdowns happening, there was some amount of critical staff who could not afford not to be in the office because some of the critical infrastructure still continued to be running. And also when they were coming in, some of the things which like probably shaking hands or something which were actually very appreciated in the past suddenly became taboo, and people could not do many of that. So one of the biggest thing was the badging in, and also anybody who wanted to come into the office for any work that they may have had to be made aware of what is their responsibilities when they're coming into the office, because they had to maintain the social distancing, they had to wear a mask, they could not tailgate, they had to not have temperature, they had to take not have any other conditions which might be detrimental to them or their colleagues who might be other critical workers who might be at office. So we had to work very closely with the communications team and the regional crisis management team to ensure that all of this was part of the communication package, which talked about how tailgating is not an acceptable thing. We were able to automate across the globe, deactivate everybody's access card, and only once somebody read and acknowledged the health and well-being guidelines was then when we activated automatically their access card would activate it, and if they had a need to be in the office, they could come into the office. And also, like with very limited staff and only critical staff being in office, they may not be trained on they may not be the emergency response trained people. So we had to ensure that everybody goes through a ERT video on building evacuation procedures, and also updating the FAQs on a regular basis with the multiple different inputs that were coming, and then filtering out to what is very relevant to the people. And another interesting thing that we saw, considering that it was like not just India and we were looking at a much larger area of managing this crisis, there were many other natural and man-made disasters which were happening as well. So at the same time, so we had to really balance the communication in a way that it is neither an overload or it is not getting lost in the mix of the pandemic communication that is going all over the place. So I think from a communication, it was definitely a challenge, but I think the working with the teams much in advance and then trying to learn from some of the countries which initially faced this crisis and the learning from there implemented in the other countries which subsequently became infected with the pandemic. I think that was one of the things which really helped us to beat the communication challenge. And also when it came to the crisis management team, I think the strong connect with the leadership team for decisive discussions and decisions really helped during the crisis. And also, speaking of security equipment, we had to really reduce the number of entry and exit points to a bare minimum to ensure that there was no people coming into close contact within the office. This is all I'm talking about, the critical staff who had to be in the office. And also, with nobody in the office and the critical infrastructure 24/7, a lot of assets that are CCTV and access control, and there was no drop of, any operationals at any point in time. Again, with a lot of newer things which brought in, like the wearing of the mask or the safe distancing and the anti-tailgating requirements, we looked at a lot of technology and we formed a return to office technology task force and started exploring various technology offerings which were there, like contactless door opening or AI-enabled cameras, temperature scanners, occupancy sensors, social distancing tracking cameras, health attestation requirements, and contact tracing. So all of these were the newer technologies which are in different stages of either proof of concepts or some of them trying to get implemented in some of the geographies. But I think there is a whole scope of opportunity for the technology to help us in driving through this time.
Thank you, Raghvendra. That was really a brilliant exposition, and I think we heard a lot of new things today, some of which, like you said, proof of concept technologies, which you just grabbed and started using right away. And of course, one of the major issues that came up, was that you just don't need to have people working from office because of various reasons, and you need to actually get them working from home, and especially in a banking and financial services where you need people 24/7 available as per their roster. And that is something which I think Barclays also had as a challenge, and in addition to all the other banking service providers. So Mandeep sir, request you to throw some light on what are your views on how workforce enablement, technology, and other aspects could help in working from home in the future, as well as what has been experienced so far.
Yeah, thank you, Sushil, and thanks, Raghvendra, as well as Sanjeev. It's a very kind of a different environment and scenario we faced, and I think Sanjeev had really, brought it all together in terms of the resilience. We had to wear multiple hats to do that. And this kind of a phenomena in the physical security world, we haven't seen it. It is one in, I would say, a century, and probably we'll keep talking about it. The workload transfer could not be done, and therefore the resilience also failed in this. physical security had to wear, I would say, one-stop solution for everything, from health to resilience to, I would say, even in a crisis like situation where family members are impacted and they need some help, which hospital to go. So the first thing which came to our mind was to centralize the command and control to establish a information dissemination, I would say, a kind of a dashboard we created around the COVID situation. That's the first thing which we did. And it was kind of well liked by the global leadership, wherein the entire information of the COVID for the country, for the region, for the world was being captured and provided how the trend is, how the active cases are going up and down. Though all this information, I would say, was not able to kind of streamline maybe the return to office strategy, but it created a kind of a interaction and traction with the leadership, with the help of which we were able to, I would say, illuminate or throw some light on the challenges which we are facing as the situation develops. A second thing which we did was that there were so many orders, no doubt about it, multiple orders from the central government, the state government, the municipal authorities. We started demystifying those orders in terms of how these orders are being implemented on ground. Though it is very good to say that these orders are there, but what was actually happening on ground, we try to kind of weave them together and provide the necessary inputs for the leadership to take the decisions. While having said that, as I think my previous speakers have already said, that providing the IT infrastructure, we had cases wherein individuals did not have, I would say, the power backup, and they were working or staying in paying guest accommodations, the food issues and power issues. So all those things, we try to handle as they came, and we supported them. Now, in addition to this, since though I do not wear the hat of a cyber security expert, but since I was told to talk about the cyber security, just to briefly talk about how the scenario was unveiling in this COVID situation, that unlike earlier when you had the networks being protected in the very premises of a business, now you had to protect the individual machines. So it was a kind of a, I would say, the attack surface increased. What we also saw globally is almost 4,000% increase in the attack on during the COVID period. And the gullible, in fact, the kind of, very creative attacks which were happening were under the garb of COVID vaccine, or probably giving you an offer for exotic destinations, and even giving you free tickets, because some of the hotels are under the garb of that, since the hotels are not booked, so you can come and stay there for 7 days and 7 nights, and people will click that. And many such, I would say, frauds came to light, not necessarily to Barclays, but globally we saw this kind of a trend which was happening. And I think from looking at it, the way things are moving and how we are looking at it, another thing when we look at the cyber threat is that now you're working in the home environment, and your physical controls are almost diminished to zero. And you could have people working in your closed environment in your house, and they could take away things, whether it is a Wi-Fi password or your machine's password, and you could be hacked. And I think you saw this Twitter hack in which the CEO of Twitter's account was hacked, and many celebrities also, their Twitter handle was also hacked. So I think this is a kind of a trend we are seeing. Of course, we'll talk about it later in the Q&A, because I don't want to dwell or take away the excitement of the cyber attack. But yes, we are going to see majority of the cyber attacks increasing, and I would say more than 40 to 50% are steered, or rather coming from US and from China, as we see now. All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. That was really nice, and I'm sure people have a lot of questions for you towards the end as well. And just taking off from something that you said, as well as Raghvendra said, where they said that a lot of information and misinformation was pouring in from various sides, and people needed to be kept apprised of what's happening through various kinds of missives and communication. So just wanted to shed some light on how they manage this whole issue of collecting information, collating information, making sense out of nonsense, cutting the clutter, and then they again, their command center handles multiple countries, feeding the information to the regions under their zone. So over to you, Om Prakash. Om Prakash, are you there? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I got lost actually.
No. Okay.
Connected.
Please,
Okay.
all yours. Yeah, please, all yours.
Okay, so I think the question for me is that situational awareness, information management for the business, for the business management. Is it?
Absolutely.
Put this entire pandemic situation in 3 stages. That is, one is the reaction, a react stage, then response stage, and third is the new next normal. So which we are moving ahead actually with that. But basically, this the situational awareness and information management is part of react and response categories basically. And key in such volatile environment when there is a lot of speculation about this pandemic situation, a lot of information coming from various sources, which was many times it was confusing, and in that situation there is a necessity of setting up a specialized governing body of incident management we call task force or anything else like that. Here in Fidelity we call CIWG group. So it's called Continuous Illness Working Group, which comprises of key support services business owners, where they can come together and take decisions, give guidance. If there are any concerns, people can raise to them, and they are capable enough to answer them because they are they comprises from various functions like risk, security, legal, HR, facility, and all that. So they have all answers, and they are again work towards like a situation. They keep contact with the security command center and have that situational awareness, and then so that they can also start feeding the information with senior leadership. So they are like like a middleman sort of thing, like where they are bridging gap between the associates queries and the management. So again, for that it is very important to define a framework for this task force again. So which comprises of like how they can anticipate a basis on what information they are getting it from a command center or so. Then probable measures to prevent business impacts, then preparation to reduce business impacts, and finally and important is to how to execute that on ground. So there are so many things we all have discussed about working from home protocols and so on and so forth. So but here in our organization, what happened, like, means since we are Fidelity is a global enterprise based out of US, and our operational presence is there in Hong Kong, which is located to near the epicenter. So we were a little like proactive for that matter, and we executed even the business continuity exercise well in advance. Like, means on 6th March we conducted a load test for our infra, and like listed out some gaps and all that, and since before prior US was yeah, quite impacted, like, means, and there were a lot of initiatives taken there. So same time, like, we also started here in Fidelity, like 13 March onwards, we decided to go and work from home for everyone, and executed this business continuity plans. So that load test actually helps us to fill the gap, and also came to know that what are our capabilities and what not, and we worked on that very well in advance. And in this specifically for information management, we worked on establishing emergency operation center, which is a centralized operation center where we monitor this incident or the pandemic situation very closely, right from the day one when this in December they started, like people started moving from across globe to China for that lunar New Year festival and all that, and from that we started monitoring that. And we by this time, like, we were having a lot of intel around it, which we collated, analyzed, and we started sharing it with the management so that they can take informed decisions well in advance. So that continued day on day, month on month, which helped in various things like recall strategy and all that. We talk in that it was very crucial information to know what is the means on ground situation. And same time, there are many other functions. Again, they wanted to do some business analysis basis on this input. So we created a repository where that information is available, and from there they used to fetch that information for their best use. So this is how actually we managed.
No, that was really great how you made the emergency control room, and you had the task force specifically dedicated to this. And of course, from my side, this was a bit of a planted question, because I just wanted to make sure that whatever information you were getting from Mitkat, I hope that was useful to your war room and your task force.
Absolutely, absolutely. So again, in information, it's very important that we follow ACT rule, actually, ACCT, ACT rule. So ACT is basically authenticated information coming from at least 3 to 5 sources, and which is again means we analyze that. Second C is comprehensive information. We don't want a whole world. We want to the site or to the area where our facilities are, and consistency, because there are multiple incidences which happens, like which goes on and on. So the consistency of that information. And last T is, it's again very important, that is timely reception of that information. So that is the mantra of our command center again.
Thank you, OMPRAKASH. That was really fascinating, and I will remember this ACT for long, and I am going to pass on this information to others as well. And coming back to what SANJEEV sir said initially, and Mandeep Man sir also said that the security function was not really designed to deal with this initially, or it took a lot of the people unawares, and so they had a lot of collaboration to do with the other functions. And I just wanted Guru sir to throw some light on how he thought about it, how they worked through it, of combining the work of the various guarding partners, facility managers, transport managers, and of course the security in overcoming this to ensure some level of continuity towards their business services. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks so much. I think the previous speakers have all spoken about various dimensions of how COVID happened and how did we respond to COVID. I would, in the spirit of the question, I would say that yes, collaboration is the key. And when you talk of collaboration, every organization has a framework to collaborate during a crisis situation, and we usually call it the business continuity team or a business continuity plan. In our case, it's a very robust plan, and so therefore we were beneficiaries of what we. There's an old saying: the more you sweat in peace, the less you sweat in war. Our plans really helped us quite a lot. And when this framework gets everyone on the same table. This framework gets the business leaders, the support function leaders, the other enterprise function leaders, all on the same table. Should there be a crisis, within half an hour of that crisis, all these leaders are there on the table. and then we look at how do we deal with the situation. So therefore, in this case also, we did have a heads up, because being a global company, we had information of what's going on in Asia Pacific, and we were understanding what's going on there, and therefore we were able to understand and plan, take certain actions preemptively. I'll speak about some preemptive actions what we did. So preemptive actions were that, yes, the quarantine did start happening, and so should quarantine happen, then what do you really need to do to be able to work? My team was the first one to be impacted, and we put our heads together and said, okay, typically a command and control center is bound in the office by some beautiful office infra with some nice video walls and some snazzy communication equipment and things like that. So we, as a design, we have work from home ability for all critical businesses and employees. And that can go to over about 20,000 plus employees that we have. I would say around 70% have the ability to work from home. So all of that was already in place, which is tested twice a year. What we did not have was the ability to take employee helpline calls. Now that our technology team very quickly, in the month of February, we were able to get some software which can patch an Avaya phone, and it can give you it's called a soft phone. We got that on our, laptops, and we were then ready to do what we have to do. When the lockdown was announced, so we were able to seamlessly switch, doing a night shift on the 24th of March from office to a morning shift from home. Now, so that's something about, how we were able to do our bit. The other is that this CMT or crisis management team, of which everyone is a part, started meeting twice a day and understanding what should be done. So therefore, people have spoken about how because you are now working from home, so therefore you needed IT assets, etc. So everyone bought those assets. Some people already had those assets. These assets had to be distributed. We had to understand what is the network status of people, etc. So another thing which was done in a very interesting manner was that very quickly a tool was created. An application, in-house application was created where you simply logged in and you had to tell, okay, I'm at home, I have power backup, I have my personal machine, this is what my status is, and this is the assistance which I need. All of that would then flow into a major database, and then it would come back to the teams of technology who would then send these assets out with the support of transport team and with the support of the security team, etc. And it worked like a very, very beautiful, well-oiled machine. I would say that the only challenge we faced was getting those curfew passes in respective cities, which we again hired a agency also at some point of time to be able to get us some curfew passes. Our transport vendors were good enough to be able to give us some vehicles which could kind of move. And so therefore, we transported IT assets, we did break fixes, all that happened. All the 20,000 plus employees were enabled to work from home with almost like 2 hours of power backup, so giving them UPSs and various other things. All this happened. And while people are working from home, my earlier panelists have spoken about team members, some critical staff working from offices also, keeping our offices up and running. Again, it was a great collaboration between the security teams, the technology teams, and the real estate teams to have your offices functional, cut down on what is essential, and continue doing that. So when you look at it from a very macro level, I think just as a concept, collaboration is the key. You really can't, the era of Hanuman is, way and gone beyond. It's all how you collaborate collectively with each other. And did we get surprised? Yes, because nobody ever thought about this. Did we have resilience? Answer is yes, we had resilience, because as a function, as a corporate security function, I think we are singularly blessed to be able to handling situations for which there is no playbook. We all as professionals have created playbooks, but we all know as professionals that the same situation or event may not play out the same way as it is written in the playbook. So
thank you, sir.
We have really kind of benefited from this collaboration, and this is a very brief peek into this particular question which you asked. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Really fascinating. In fact, I did come to know that yours was one of the first command centers which went virtual. I have my spies everywhere. And then that was where we decided to take off and said that if such a multinational command center can go virtual, why not ours? And that's where we started working on it. But thanks for all the great insights, sir. And I'll come back to you in a while. And you mentioned a very important point about curfew passes, and taking off from that, I will, this issue of, and some earlier also somebody said that multiple regulations across the country, across states, across cities, and operations all over, and you had to make sure that people could navigate through all of those complicated regulations and yet get essential services into place. So that is where I would like to, request Surender sir, since he handles such a vast portfolio over such a huge geography, that, what were the multiple regulatory challenges and compliance issues, and how did you manage to navigate through all of that, and what structure or what organizational, tips and tricks did you use to navigate this whole issue?
Sushil, at the outset, I would say that thank you so much for giving me the opportunity in the last. I don't know how much time I've got with me. Of course, I'd kept the stopwatch with me. I don't think I'll need it anymore now. To be frank, I'm really benefited from all the previous speakers, and they have been seasoned soldiers. And before starting the meeting, I got to know about their background. And last group, what he has spoken. Thank you so much, all of you, enlightening me. Before going to this specific question, to be frank, I was thinking that when you go to the World Economic Forum, and they have the risk management, and under risk management, they have various categories, broader categories like environmental risk or economical risk, or they have technology risk, health, what we call pandemic, and geopolitical risk. Today, if you see, all the risks are together the world is facing, whether it is South China Sea, whether it is Indo-China, or whether it is Middle East, or you see it. And this pandemic situation, we have been talking, to be frank, since 2005, very honestly, that pandemic visits the world every 100 years, but we never knew that it is going to visit during our time, and this is going to visit this way. Yes, we knew that if it happens, it would spread within just 3 days here and there because of the mode of transport available in today's world. And you're caught totally unaware. And though we say that I've been managing, responsible for the vast area starting from Tokyo right up to Melbourne, yes, there have been challenges. There have been different regulatories, especially like a place like you have Philippines, where we have got a very big office under DOLE, what we call Department of Labor and Employment. We have different statutories. World getting locked down all of a sudden, and I getting stuck into Manila in those times. To be frank, because we also took it very lightly, like SABHRAWAL mentioned that we did not know that what it is going to be and how it is going to unfold. We thought we'll manage through it. And I took my travels, and then we had to cut short at 5. Yes, I've been fortunate, I would say, that we have been part and parcel of the senior management. The risk has been part and parcel of the risk management, and every time we have been involved. And I would say thankful to the Bangalore environment, especially of 14, 15, 15, 16, where we had so many turbulence here, including Kaveri water and all those kind of things, where the business had to go under business continuity for 16 times a year. So that prepared, and that gave an opportunity to us to prepare ourselves better. And yes, we had prepared that 40% of people would work from home, for which we have been doing religiously from the day one, all these things. But we never knew that 100% are going to be working from home. And what are the government statutory, whether it's DOT, whether it is the STPI, whether it is SCZ, or you have the PESA in Philippines, or you have the regulations passed in Singapore. So for me, the key was first, to be frank, I would say thank you so much, Mitkat, that you have been sharing all informations, relevant information, which helps us a lot. And our command center, which has been which has been in the business since 2010. I take pride in saying this, which we set up in Bangalore. In fact, back to back in NetApp, we set up this one in 2004 and here. Then we have security coordinators in each office in each country, and we had actually created a repository for each country, not now, much before, that what all those regulations we need to be following, because they are basically the client facing offices, and India being the backup office, we have to meet those statutory requirements of that country from the client perspective, from financial regulatories, and from the other perspectives. So we were more or less prepared, but yes, within India, that 100% would go to the office. Those statutory, those government guidelines, those government of Maharashtra, government of Karnataka, and in one of the forum I have said that please set up and accept the workable SLAs. Do not have SLAs that even if India is a holocaust of the nuclear war, will deliver from the heavens or hell. No, that's not possible. Be practical. Okay, and probably that helps us a lot. And I'm very thankful again to the sister companies, including Credit Suisse and many others out here, like OMPRAKASH is here. We formed the group, and that also helped us to remain aligned with the local statutory. In fact, in Frank, I know that we are running short of time, and I cannot cover all those kind of things. But frankly, that remaining, first of all, your source, then our security coordinators, the management, and we had already prepared ourselves in the past. So that helps. And then changing rules and regulations. The control center is 24/7. I never thought that control center would work from home. Our control center is delivering from home. Yes, we have to create that balance for that. So, I know.
No, I really appreciate that, sir, of your being mindful of the timeline and the timings, and also capturing the essence so nicely. And also thank you for acknowledging our contribution, Mitkat's contribution towards working through the regulations. So it really fills me with a lot of pride.
In fact, it helps us to give a path forward, that how it will be unfolding, likely to be unfolding. And that is helping the management.
Right. And of course, if the security function is efficiently helping the business to take decisions, then obviously, like Sanjeev sir said, that is where you start being called to the top table. And that is what I wanted to speak about in the second part. I know we are running short of time, but I have the organization's nod to, extend by a few minutes here and there. But the second part, we'll try and encapsulate quickly in one or two sentences or a couple of sentences as to how you have seen that during this whole pandemic. So if you talk of the pandemic from the PC, DC, and AC, that is before coronavirus, during coronavirus, and after coronavirus, how do you see the security? All of you. I mean, this is question to all of you. So I'll start again with where we started from Sanjeev SABHRAWAL sir. If you can encapsulate and advise people as to how this security function has actually taken the lead in making sure that it's a business enabler to banking and financial services. Sanjeev sir.
Yeah, thanks. So we all spoke about what we went through when we arrived. And now we all know that we are actually at the plateau. We've done what we have to do. People have equipment at home in some form of information dissemination mechanism. Each organization security vertical has done their bit, right? And they're continuing to do their bit. I'll tell you what I have done, and I'm at the cusp of launching this. So we've been releasing information in bits and pieces, analyzing them, like Mansar said, that you interpret it and present an analytical version of that information which is actionable. Fantastic. But the problem that is coming, which I saw coming, is that this plethora of information is not available at a central piece. For example, ideal situation would be that I have a query and I go to a tool and I click on a button and I get my answer. I don't have to pick up a telephone. I don't have to ask a friend. I don't have to do anything. And it could be a query related with a statistical dashboard that I need to look at, because I want to find out which is the hotspot in the globe where I cannot let my staff go. So per million, how many new cases coming, whatever formula that you worked out. Or there's a ambulance services that is required by one of my staff, or there's a hospital bed inquiry, or there's a travel that one has to make to a place A to place B. I'm sitting and there are 20 different people in my organization wanting these 20 different information at a point in time, right? So what do? You've released this information in bits and pieces. So I'll tell you what I've done. I have no qualms in sharing it that we created a tool. Again, is it slipping between the gap that's been created by this opportunity, seeking an opportunity and presenting yourself. I created this tool. I say it's nothing I've done. I've just guided. It's my team that has done it. A central tool which has got almost 500 separate pieces of information where anybody could actually self-navigate itself and arrive at an answer that it needs. Now, if you can't find that answer to your satisfaction, you then escalate it to level 1, which is the control room, which most of us have under a command and control. Wordy spoke about it, right? So, and he will then present you what you can't get because he's been trained to look at it, and that's the training. Soft skills training is very important again. Then he needs to interact. And third, if you can't, obviously there's a level of escalation. This tool, I'll tell you one thing. My CEO, my top management is actually holding me like a puppy in their hands and saying, this is one of the brightest pieces of things that they've seen. And I'm sure everybody has done something like that or the other. But this is one opportunity I saw, and this is where, and it's not going away. This pandemic is not going away. For the shortness, I can speak for next 6 to 7 months until a vaccine comes about and we start getting herd immunity because of vaccine. And this will continue. And information will keep flowing in. Lockdowns will come again. The waves will come back again. Many other yesterday, there's a international flight information where people arriving into country can get themselves tested at the airport. Now, this is something a couple of my executives are finding. So people don't know how to sort of interpret that. Again, presenting them information in a click of a button, that's the kind of tool. So, and it's no rocket science to create the tool. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Wonderful exposition. And I'm sure all organizations have done something like this. And those that haven't, we have a similar tool that you can plug into. So contact me after this. And Raghavendra, your takeaway from this, how is the security function sort of been a key business enabler? And like Sanjeev sir said, are they also holding you like a puppy in their hands, and will that last, and how will you make it last?
Yeah, I think thanks for the question, Sushil. I think it's all about adding value. I think which what many of the speakers said is all about trying to find an opportunity and trying to rise to the occasion. And it's all about not bothering about what your charter of duties are, and then just looking at the overall organizational requirement and rising to the occasion and trying to deliver things. Like we have had a guard who walked some 5 kilometers to deliver a laptop to a new joinee to give that wow effect, to somebody switching on a server and going through, somebody telling, because people could not come into the office, they had to call him over a WhatsApp call and give him the instructions. So he went into the server lab and did things that the engineer had to be doing. And almost like 500 people became productive in this globally. So I think it's all about trying to identify different opportunities for stepping up, and also to ensure that, I'm worried at the end of this pandemic, most of my guys may leave away and become either an IT professional or something else, because they are being trained in so many other things. And I think it's all about trying to upskill the people and leverage a lot on technology. And I think we will have to now reimagine the way we security will be. And it is never going to be the same in the new normal. There are a lot of ifs and buts, like would the real estate be the same? Would the operations be the same? With a lot of flexibility that people have experienced, with a lot of things happening from home, would still people want to risk having women going late in the night? We don't know answers for a lot of things. It's being ready for the unknowns, being ready to grab opportunities and try and see where you can do a great marriage between technology and upskill manpower. And that's where I would want to end my 2 words with how we want security to be in the long run as an enabler.
Yeah. That's really nice and a lovely example you gave of your guard. And so Mandeep sir, what is your takeaway on this, and how would your function, or how would your people and your command center, look at being a business enabler, and how does the business look at you being an enabler?
Okay, thanks Sushil for this wonderful question. I think of security, is going to be a strategic initiative in times to come, and the threats are going to be more blended in nature rather than only physical in nature. And I am also looking at how we can upskill our teams in the physical security in the JOC world, wherein we can provide them some additional capabilities to handle a cyber threat or a cyber kind of an incident, to monitor that, as well as to provide certain, I would say, initial incident management tools to mitigate the risks. Also, when we see these blended threats, you know that the physical security is at the perimeter. So let's give you an example. An employee having his desktop hacked and his wife getting a threat call, such kind of incidents would also come to your operation center, and there may be a requirement for you to liaison with the law enforcement agency to provide them the best way forward, how to get this thing sorted out. Sometimes cyber cells are different locations, and what kind of evidence is required for such kind of threats. Your mobile gets hacked, and what kind of information isolation and evidence needs to be provided so that the perpetrator can be caught. 90% of the cases in the cyber world are now going uncharge sheeted because of lack of evidence. So I look at that first thing, which is going to probably till the time we are working from home, when the cyber threats being high, we are likely to see that physical security will more and more get involved in that, and which we have already got involved in, like with this incident management and things like that. Second thing, which I think I go with the what Raghvinder was saying, we have to reimagine security. Wherever there is an opportunity, we have to upscale ourselves. No longer we have to rely on guards, cards, and knuckles. We have to see wherever there is an opportunity, whether it is in the resilience world, whether it is in the facilities world, where people require trust. And that is what physical security can provide: reliability and trust. That's the most important thing, which I keep telling my team also. And the point regarding dashboard and having information, it's a fantastic idea which Sanjeev brought out. And I think what we did was that we created data. Now, data of, let's say, incidents in terms of your cases, active cases, data about the hospitals, the beds availability, all kinds of things. So that if a person calls me and he asks me that which hospital can I go? So instead of they wanting to go to the tool, our joint operation center would be able to advise them that this is the hospital where you can go as per the available information from the golden source, that is government. Whether that hospital does provide them the admission, that's a $1 million question, because hospitals do not update their website and do not provide the latest information. Those challenges at the ground level will be there, but that is where our whole forum gets together and collaborates and helps each other, if in case you know somebody who can work along with. Next is, the security is not just having security. I feel that you have to make people feel secure, and it's a very emotional connect. So if somebody calls me at an odd time in the day or a night, if I say that, okay, please call so and so person, he will be able to help you, it's not the solution. I will let me look into it and I'll get back to you. Give me just 5 minutes. And once you have spoken, because you know the whole I would say the landscape very well, that who is able to do what, and then accordingly provide them the solution. I think that is what people like it and look forward.
Thank you, sir. I think that is really nicely put, and I like this phrase of making people feel secure rather than just providing security, which really resonates with what I have been saying for so many years about moving on to an attitude of duty of care rather than just duty. And OMPRAKASH, you've already told us about how valuable your information has been for your organization for navigating the current status. How do you see this relevant in the after Corona status as well? Maybe like months, 1 year. Do you see that now that you have established a presence in the organization, do you feel that this trust and faith in your current, your whole organization will continue the way it is after Corona?
Yes, I think Raghvendra and Mansur both have already covered on this specifically in short, that going beyond actually and creating avenues and how to add values in the system in today's pandemic situation where there is a need actually or necessity. So and that I think this security function or corporate security guys are doing wonders in that, and they are making impression everywhere that they are really saviors for in all the areas actually. In addition to that, I wanted to add here one point that we have to ensure and build flexible business continuance, because that is today's need. Because in past, like before this pandemic situation, our processes, policies were very stringent actually. But now this pandemic situation has taught us so many things, like, and where we have means it made us to go back and review our policies and procedures, even in that matter, like someone was mentioning about remote surveillance capabilities. So that was, it was never thought in past actually, right? But now we are doing that. I think the Bank of America, Worthy sir has mentioned about that. So these things are very important in today's scenario.
Thank you so much, OMPRAKASH. And really, then that resonates with what somebody said, that the playbooks can't be followed so rigidly now. And also we had this issue of, being prepared for the next, and never having heard the word lockdown till it was suddenly thrust upon us, all of us. And so we have to be really flexible. And so I would just like, thanks a lot. And Virdi sir, any takeaways from your side? You've achieved so much: virtual command centers, collaborative working through the pandemic. And what's the next step once we get back to normal? How do you ensure that the function still stays relevant?
Yeah, thanks so much, Sushil. I think what I would like to say very briefly is that we have to remain mentally agile. And when I say mentally agile, it's how can we continue to work without boundaries? How can we continue to do more with less? How can we continue to leverage new technologies to bring in safety and security into the whole system? One small example, everyone is talking of thermal cameras, and we were on a global call. There was a vendor who had given a nice picture of how thermal cameras can really pick up. Just a CCTV camera can pick up the thermal image. Now in that image such a nice in the pocket of that employee or that person who was in, and you could even see the wallet because it had a different thermal signature. Now, can that be leveraged? I mean, it's a beautiful thing. Can that be leveraged for looking at many other things of what is an employee carrying, or gun control, or various other things? So when that was pointed out, the discussion took a different turn altogether. So there is something in the market. How can you leverage it for doing something more? And security, of course, can never put boundaries around it. Unless, of course, there are some financial restrictions around the same. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I like that phrase, and I think that's a good takeaway for the audience, that security has to work without boundaries. And coming to the last panelist, Surender sir, can you give us your key takeaway from how the security function can continue to be more relevant and considered as a business enabler like it has proved during the pandemic?
Sushil, I would say in a very simple terms that we have been business enablers. There have been lots of expectations from us before the COVID, but during this COVID and ongoing situation, physical security has proved its worth. And now the expectations have gone very high. Now, once the situation comes somewhere to normalcy and people start returning to office, I would say remain relevant and make sure that you are the business enablers. Probably take coming to the office as the business continuity situation, and continue to think that work from home is a BAU.
Right, sir. Great. That's very nicely put.
I would say, and I would sum it up this way: hope for the best, wait for the vaccination to come. But yes, I would say that we have started preparing all the offices across the APAC region, that when they come to the office, we are not sure that in wave 0 who would be there, wave 1 who would be there, whether they'll be structured ERT or not. So prepare everybody, and we have started holding the WebEx trainings for those people, online trainings. So prepare your people for that. And as what I said, expectations have gone very high, that you can create wonders while ensuring that you yourself are safe and keeping the organization safe, because they're also the human beings. And I always been saying, in my new hires that they are the millennial generation. Most of the security staff are the millennial generation. They too have families.
Thank you, sir.
They too have the same issue. They have the same COVID exposure everywhere. But poor infrastructure, poor income, but still standing to the organization. So I would
very
say
relevant, sir, and very relevant, and I think the most underrated workforce in the whole organization, and they have proved to be the champions of the pandemic. So yeah, hats off to all those guarding partners and the guard force that we all have and we rely on.
Trust me, the organization has been so appreciative, so kind. Organization has gone 2 steps ahead to support the GPSs. This is the situation today in the Northern Trust I'm talking about.
Fantastic, sir. And thank you for that takeaway of remaining relevant and appreciating your guard force. And so I think we have 3 questions, which, I will throw it open to the panel. So any one of the panelists who wants to take them will, Mohit, do we have your permission to finish with these 3 questions? I know we've run out of time, but I think it's been such a fascinating discussion and so many great things have come up that I've been just filling pages of my notebook with all the points that came up.
Yes, sir. We
So,
can
Ritika?
go. Yeah, sir. We can go ahead.
Okay. So there's a question from Colonel Bhandari that what additional cybersecurity measures were incorporated for bankers to function from home? Can any one of those working with hardcore banking take that on, please? I will leave it open to whoever wants to take that question. Sanjeev sir or Vidhi sir, maybe?
So I think the banking function as a whole already has adequate resilience, for people to be working from home. Now the challenge was that when you are working from home in the initial stages, what we found was that the laptops are not there, the hardened laptops are not there. And that was the challenge. So the initial stages, people had to work from their personal devices to log in from there, and that was a challenge. But very quickly, within a month's time, almost 90 to 97% of the employees who have to deal with the transactions and other things were provided with the hardened laptops. Second thing is that there are still certain teams within the banking infrastructure who need to have, I would say, certain functions where they are, voice services and all that. They have to continue to work from the office, and for which the return to office strategy was employed. So as a whole, I don't say that there was any additional measures being taken from the cyber security perspective per se for the banking, I would say, companies. But yes, now having seen the kind of blended threats which we are seeing, not at least in India, but world over, that there would be certain additional investments would have to be made around the data privacy and, various other threats. Because once you're it can be a very small way of, I think, that when the blended threat takes place, somebody with social engineering skills gets hold of your, or you click a button because you were distracted while working from home, and you could give away. In fact, most of the people who are nowadays targeted are most vulnerable are the IT personnel themselves. Even the Twitter hack which happened, it was through the IT personnel, wherein his account was hacked, through which they were able to access the Twitter handles of the celebrities. So I am saying that there would be more investment going in around that on the cyber side, and we have to see how those threats are materializing. But there is no, I would say, at this point in time, any extra things which were done.
Absolutely. And if I may add what Mansur has said, that we have a philosophy that each employee of the company is the first risk manager, and onus lies on he or she, and they go to manage it. And if there is anything, they need to raise a flag. Absolutely right. Nothing very additional has been done in the past 4 or 5 months. But practice that onus lies on those individual partners. Those are sitting in their individual homes and managing their individual machines.
Thank you, sir, both of you. And there's a question from Zakir Haider, who says that this is more related to health and hygiene. He says, in the organization during post-COVID scenario, how can physical and electronic security be augmented with hygiene policies to reassure employees? I think that would be top of the mind concern for all the employees. And I think it was adequately brought out during the discussion that a lot of organizations have been preparing their workplaces. So I think it's pretty much answered, and we don't need to sort of dwell more upon this. And another question that has come up is,
and absolutely, Sunil,
yes, sir.
Sushil, just to add,
Yes, sir.
you
Please,
don't know,
please,
it is still evolving, and we don't know the next week or next month what all other thing comes into the market which integrate the physical security and hygiene and those kind of things. We don't know.
Absolutely. So, initially concern was that spread was through droplets and then fomites. So we had touch surfaces, then we had HVAC, and now suddenly there was rumors, or there was some information that it could be aerosol spread also. So obviously the HVAC system had to be geared up for all of that. So this kind of information will keep evolving, and the process is top of the mind for everyone, definitely.
Yeah, so if I may add, with some of the POCs that we have done, so we have done the AI in the cameras. It talks about like tailgating, if a person falls down or if he's carrying a weapon, and occupancy, social distancing, health attestation, and contact tracing. So all of them have been able to, I mean, it's some different forms of proof of concept, but these are all possibilities in terms of in the future where the electronic security and physical security, and like there is a possibility to dispatch if they find any deviation to whatever of these to the mobile of a security officer or a guard to go and respond to those deviations as well. So
right, great. So that's really valid. And there was another question which has come that for physical security resources to be monitored themselves from the command centers, etc. There are so many branches, so many locations to be monitored. Has there been any change? So part of it was already answered by Raghavendra that there have been now software and AI for ensuring social distancing of various other aspects. So I think this is pretty much covered. And one last question that has come up from someone is that because there are two questions. One, yes, sir.
Sushil, just a quick one on your previous question, which you just narrated. I think I just want to call out that connecting with your team members across all levels, I think that has really helped, and that is also very, very important. So while full-time employees have been working from home, and you have the vendor employees from the security service provider holding on to the fort, regular meetings with them, video calls with them, group chats with them, all of them have done great amount of help. So connecting
and
very
communication. Very important, sir.
Sushil, one small elaboration on what Vodi just said, and most of us have done it, but nobody brought it out, that there is a need of business continuity within the command centers, which become hub of control for this pandemic.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, most of us have a command center. What if the entire command center gets COVID? Where does the hub go? You become headless, absolutely. So, and most of us have done it. Have an alternate backup plan to a command center. So create an alternate command center.
Yes, SABHRAWal, I would say.
Right. Sorry, let me complete. Yeah, let me complete. Second, within your command center, so that you bring people, some people in the office, some people work from home now, and then you rotate the shift. Number two, people have forgotten that containment zones are coming up, and I belong to a city which is the number of cases in India, Pune. Right. And we have almost 78, 90 micro-contained, and our people come from such areas. And if they get locked out, how do you have people? Where do the guards come from? Again, strategies like making people stay over. There's no, how do you make people? All these things actually were, nobody talked about this, but this is where security plays such an immense impact to you.
Absolutely, sir. Just to your point, our entire staff of the control center is working from their individual homes. And also, we have practically been working as a backup in London and Chicago and vice versa. So this is what we have created. Yes, and when we return to office, we'll not go back to the command center. We have identified a place in different locations, including Pune. So in India also, we are at 2 places. So that's how we have worked.
Very nice.
At all places, we're working from home.
Thank you, sir. Great sort of inputs. I think great takeaways for everyone who's listening to this. And I know we have overrun time a lot, but I just want to put this one last very interesting question. There are many more questions. I'll ask the organizers how to deal with those later. But one last very interesting question, which I just want to throw up, and one person to please take it on. They said that what is that one tool or solution that you wish you had in the beginning of the pandemic and which you miss the most? Anybody?
It's a $1 million question. I think everyone around the world is asking for that question and answer to that question.
I think very simply, this is more resiliency related. Nobody could actually think that people had to work 100% from home. And if this was incorporated in the pandemic plan, which nobody did, it's a black swan event, right? Nobody ever thought about it. If that was what was available to people, actually would have not as lucky as Bank of America, right? I mean, they had 100% planning, but most of us didn't have. And that's where the paralysis came in, like I talked about. If this was available to us, well, and the key here is to think of what's coming next, to think it now, so that you have that available.
So there's a very interesting answer which has also come on the chat, and that one tool probably would be a crystal ball. So on that note, I would like to sort of close the discussion and Q&A, and thank you so much for being such a wonderful and such a knowledgeable panel. And I think I've just been scribbling notes non-stop from the time we started discussing till now. And I'm sure a lot of the participants have also been doing so. So I hand over the mic back to Ritika and Mohit to sort of close it. But before that, once again, being such a wonderful set of panelists and for sharing your personal and organizational experiences with us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sushil. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sushil, sir, and thank you to all the panelists for their wonderful sites. So I, on behalf of Secutech India and the entire team of Mitkat, extend our heartedly thank you to all the speakers for gracing your important work and sharing your wonderful insights. So thank you all. And I hope that we do another webinar soon with all of them. Thank you so much, sir.
And stay safe. Thank you so much, all the panelists.
Thank you, sir.
For sharing your thoughts. Thanks. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All the best.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.